Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
I want you to picture for a moment what an accident looks like. Is it an auto accident where somebody gets rear-ended, or maybe it's a job place accident where you have to wear a hard hat if you go to a construction site? Now, tell me this, how do you accidentally chop off somebody's head, let alone the head of a little boy? And that is what's being reported by CNN. Rebels, boy beheaded in Syria, a mistake. And they say the beheading could affect U.S. support of the rebels. The rebels claim the boy was a prisoner from a pro-regime militia force made up mostly of Palestinians in Syria, and that he was captured from an unofficial refugee camp north of the war-torn Aleppo. The footage then shows one of the men taking a knife to the child's head. The boy appears to be quite young, perhaps around 10, although CNN cannot confirm or verify the boy's age or identity. In a statement posted on their Facebook page, the rebel group involved called the killing an individual mistake, and that it would investigate the human rights abuses that were shared on social media sites. So when I heard this story, when I read this headline, I was thinking a mistake. Maybe this young man, or this little boy, let's call him what he is, lost his head in some type of shrapnel incident. Maybe there's an explosion, the shrapnel came and it cut his head off. And I'm not trying to joke here, I'm being very serious here. I'm like, how do you accidentally cut off a little boy's head? From their own admission in this article by CNN, they say he was maybe around 10 years old. They also say that somebody took a knife to the kid's head, sawed his head off. It wasn't like a real smooth, quick and clean axe or sword. You have to put in effort to saw somebody's head off. But according to CNN, it was a mistake. It was an individual error. In another quote here, it was just accidental that this rebel group decided to cut off this little boy's head. And to say how much of this is not a mistake, this was a very intentional action, and it's been going on for quite some time. It's making the news now because it's a high-profile case of a little boy suffering these consequences. But these Syrian rebels, most of whom aren't even Syrian, we've been documenting this for at least the 4 years that I've been here, have been caught doing numerous war crimes. I'm not saying that they're the only ones, and I'm not saying that Assad's an angel by any stretch of the imagination, but the Syrian rebels, the group that we back, have a long history of doing this. And to show you that, I just have a small sampling of articles here. Let's start with this one. UN designates Free Syrian Army affiliates of Al-Qaeda. The Libyan Islamic fighting group currently arming, funding, and commanding brigades of the so-called Free Syrian Army is designated an Al-Qaeda affiliate by the United Nations. Now, do I agree with everything the United Nations does and says? Absolutely not. But even the United Nations can see clear as day that the Free Syrian Army, aka the Syrian rebels, are nothing more than a Al-Qaeda group, and they act as such. And that's not the only one. Let's take a look at this one a few years back. Syrian rebels commander, yes, we're still collaborating with ISIS. Speaking with Lebanon's Daily Star, Basil Idris, commander of an FSA-run rebels brigade, openly discussed the group's joint operations with ISIS in the al-Nusra Front. We are collaborating with the Islamic State in the Nusra Front by attacking the Syrian army's gathering. Once again, you have these terrorist organizations being funded by the West. We have long documentation of that. They chop off a little boy's head and they say it was an accident. It was, what's the quote here? An individual error to be investigated, why they thought it was necessary to chop off the head of a little boy. We'll continue here. Pentagon-trained rebel group in Syria pledges allegiance to ISIS-aligned al-Nusra. Division 30, also known as the New Syrian Forces, was created by the United States as part of a propaganda campaign to counter the fact virtually all of the mercenaries in Syria have gone over to the Islamic State. But once again, even though these guys are singing songs about Osama bin Laden, how great he is, and all the other war crimes we've documented here, it was a mistake they chopped off this little boy's head. We got one more here talking about Senator John McCain, the guy who just loves war, and he wants to criticize you if you don't know who you're talking about. And we have this article from a couple years ago. Angry McCain admits meeting with ISIS, scolds Rand Paul for not knowing terrorists. This is a quote from McCain. Has Rand Paul ever been to Syria? Has he ever met with ISIS? Has he ever met with any of these people? No, no, no. McCain said, clearly in reference to his own visit to Syria in 2013, where he is photographed with leaders of the Free Syrian Army, the fighters violently opposed to the Assad regime. Now let's show this picture of McCain here. Now in this picture, these are several guys who have done the war atrocities that we've been documenting for several years. And McCain, he's over there, he's shaking hands and kissing babies and hanging out with known terrorists. And then he wants to come back to the stateside and criticize Rand Paul for not knowing who these people are. Yes, Senator McCain, I'm sure you do know who these people are. You've been arming them and funding them and wanting more aid to go to them. Meanwhile, they're doing all these atrocities, including chopping off a little boy's head. And that's just what happened here recently. You can go back to the archives, whether it's here or someplace else, and see the numerous crimes these guys have done, whether it's burning down Christian villages or shooting priests or any number of things going on for a very long time, but it's just now making the news. But when it does make the news cycle, CNN is just going to say it's a mistake. It was a, one last time, it was a, quote, individual error, according to CNN, that this little boy lost his head. Now let's move on to some other news and lighten up the mood here a little bit. Let's talk about the Republican National Convention and the things that are going on out there. Now, if you haven't seen the video, there's been a whole lot of stuff going on, a lot of big interviews. The guys they had a chance to talk to, Dinesh D'Souza and Nigel Farage and many other celebrities out there as well. Ted Nugent was on the show today. Alex had a bit of a scuffle out there yesterday, but we're talking about something a little bit different, and this is Breitbart. They're talking about The Daily Show. Now, personally, I have never seen a full episode of The Daily Show. I can honestly say that. I've seen snippets of it here and there. When they make it around the news cycle, hey, watch this funny clip of The Daily Show. I may watch some of that. I've never seen a full episode, whether with the new guy or with Jon Stewart. So I don't know how they edit their videos. Many people are saying that they selectively edit them. I don't know, but here's a clip where this is the Breitbart News editor, Joe Pollack. He had a chat with The Daily Show about their editing process.
What I think you're doing is I think you're ambushing people who came to our party.
I know, I'm saying
right?
You're totally welcome to stay and
That's
watch,
what I think
you're
you're
able
doing.
to have that opinion.
I can film you ambushing people. I'm totally entitled to do that. You're here
By the way,
for our event.
Ambush? Yeah, absolutely.
Sir, we're completely honest with where we're from and what we're doing.
But you're not honest with the people you interview, are you?
Yes.
You splice and dice. This has been said many times, and I've seen it happen.
Like every single television show
You
you've ever
edit.
seen
You edit
besides
to make
live
people.
sports.
You edit
Sir,
to
you're
make
not
people
the
look
one being
stupid.
This is not the argument.
It's not your responsibility.
And that was the reaction, because I run into people sometimes, and if I have a street interview with somebody, I usually prefer to record it, whether I just have an iPhone in my pocket or I've gone on the street with Biggs when he's talked to other news agencies, and we always record it just in case, for whatever reason, there's some creative edit later on. We have the account of what actually happened, and they were doing a similar thing here. You can argue whether they being abrasive or not, either side, but that's what that situation was.
Hi, I'm Dr. David Jones. I've been in practice for over 30 years in dentistry. In our health histories, we've always asked what people's primary complaint were. A third of the time, it's I want whiter teeth. In the early days of dentistry, we used some fairly harsh chemicals in order to bleach the teeth and whiten them, and people were happy with the results, even though it created hypersensitivity and some problems that I consider fairly high risk. Recently, I was exposed to the Ghost Smile system. It allows a whitening gel to be applied to the teeth with a very good ultrasonic toothbrush system. The gel is activated by a light-emitting diode, or actually two light-emitting diodes. So it's a simple and elegant procedure that delivers office-quality whitening, and you don't have to spend the $600 it typically costs for an in-office treatment. In my opinion, it's the most elegant and best value that I've ever seen. To get your Ghost Smile system, go to InfowarsStore.com.